And here we go. So, welcome back to the channel, everybody. Thank you very much for joining me. I have my favorite person in the world that I'm speaking to today, a wonderful friend of mine, Michelle Dresbold, who I'm fortunate enough to have had on the channel before. Absolutely fantastic guest. Michelle, how are you today?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you. So nice to see you again.
Oh, bless you. You too. I love what you do, and everybody who I speak to, they turn around and I'll say, I know a handwriting expert, and they say, you mean a graphologist? I say, no, she doesn't like to be called a graphologist because that's not what this is. This is a handwriting expert, and then I go into explanation, and then it changes their perception a little bit. And I always recommend your book.
Oh, thank you. And what's the name of my book?
Your book, I love the title. It's just here, Sex, Lies, and Handwriting.
Oh,
So,
yes.
which, funnily enough, my 12-year-old daughter saw and she said, "Oh, Daddy, can I read that?" And at first I was like, and I thought, no, what? She's taking an interest. I'm going to let her. So she's like,
Oh,
she's
good.
really, she's loving it. In fact, you've started a little bit of a trend off in our house now because whenever it's Christmas and we get greetings cards, we're always looking at the handwriting of people. So we get all the Christmas cards and we compare them and, and do all
That,
the
I love it. I love it.
uh, yeah. So that happens with whether it's handwritten letters or anything that we get. And my wife's a nightmare. She'll pass them to me. She'll say, "Analyze that. Have a look. Tell me what you think." And I'm like, "I'm not the expert. I just read the book."
Well, if you read the book, you're a teeny bit of an expert. So,
Little bit more knowledgeable than most, maybe.
right,
But I'd
right.
love to be on your level one day. That's something I'd love to get to.
Well, I would like on you. I've read your book too about
Oh, wow.
body language, and I've really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm going. So first off, before I go into recapping some of the things you've done before, because you've got some phenomenal stories. Are there any new projects you can talk about and tell us about that we don't know about yet?
Mm. Well, I am working on a book, another book. I'm finished with it. I just have to now get it in, and it's my first novel,
Oh,
but it
wow.
is based on a true story, and
Yeah.
it is about, well, without giving it away, it deals with the Jack the Ripper murders.
Oh, wow.
Hmm.
Ooh. Oh, no, that's going straight on my Christmas list.
Yeah, that will go in. Yes, it's not published yet, but as soon as it is, I will definitely let you know. It's just finished, and now it has to, go to the publisher and quote get accepted. And it's a novel, but based on true facts, and there's a lot of handwriting in it.
Wow, I can't wait to
Right.
get a hold of that. Definitely.
Right. I mean, during the Jack the Ripper murders, which happened in 1888, there were about 1,000, at least 1,000 letters sent to police or to the newspapers. So that's sort of what the book's based on.
1888. I was only young back then as well.
In
So.
1888, I was just a kid.
Yeah. So I've got an alibi. So wow. Okay. So when that gets released, will you come back on and join us again to
Oh,
talk
for
about the novel?
sure. For
Oh,
sure.
that'd be wonderful. So in the meantime, for anybody that doesn't have it already, then this is the one to keep you going. The sexualized and handwriting is absolutely brilliant. I promise you, once you start, you'll have a whole new fascination and an appreciation for people's handwriting. So, Michelle, so some of the things you've worked on in the past, and we have touched on this in other videos, but we'll just recap. What I'd like to start with is the kind of the little girl's rescue note because it's just one of my favorites. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, when I first started, I used to work as the consultant. I'm from Pittsburgh, as the Pittsburgh police. I was their consultant. And there was a note, and what had happened was a note written in crayon was found on the sidewalk. A woman picked it up, and it said, "Please rescue," but it's hard to read it, "rescue me." And there was a K and a few other letters. And she thought, oh, what if this is a kidnapping note? So she took it down to the police and said, oh, I found this note on the sidewalk. It's written in crayon. And the police called me in, of course, and they said, what do I think? And I said, I think it says, please rescue me. And it had a K and then something on another line. And I said, it says Kelsey. That's a girl's name. And I said, it's written by a girl. She's between the ages of 4 and 6. I don't see any signs of danger in this handwriting. So I think it's okay. No worries. And that evening, I think like a big FBI guy came on television. It became national news that there was a child kidnapped in Pittsburgh, and we have to send out troops, and there's a kid, and we have to find this kid. And I was like, oh my God, I hope I'm not wrong. And maybe there's a kid and she's kidnapped. And I told them not to worry. And the next morning, a little girl, 5 years old, came in with her daddy and said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I wrote the note to my teddy bear and it flew out the window and I don't want to get arrested. So, I mean, that was my fun. I don't have always fun cases, but that was really fun. And she was really sweet. And, but when you have danger in handwriting or somebody, there's my phone ringing. Hold on. Don't go away.
I just turned mine to silent as well. I forgot, my bad. It just beat with a message right then and there. So,
I have a telemarketer calling me morning, noon, and night, so I'm going to just turn this whole thing off. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. But when there's danger in somebody's handwriting, when somebody's stressed, when somebody's scared, there will almost always be some signs in that handwriting. And I didn't see any signs. And even a child, I didn't see any signs.
So what kind of things would give away kind of danger and stress in a situation like that? What would we be looking for?
There's all different signs, but let's say if you're stressed, all of a sudden your hand cramps up, your muscles tighten, and your lettering becomes more narrow, it becomes a little more angular, and there's a little shakiness. So whatever is going on in someone's brain and body comes out in their handwriting.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, if it's free feeling and big and rounded, that person's not frightened.
Got you. And so would that also go into like the indentation of how deep it kind of pushes into the paper? Would that have anything to do with it as well, or?
Well, that's more the example. If you got a note from somebody who said, I kidnapped somebody, and their handwriting is very deep into the page, that is a more serious case, and that one you would have to take more seriously.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Right, okay. So I absolutely love stuff like this, and what I'd like to do in a short while, just to tease everybody, is to go into some of the warning signs we can perhaps look for in somebody's handwriting to say that's the kind of person you can stay away from. Perhaps some of the opposite side of it, some of the things that show someone's honest and caring, and a few tips, but. In the meantime, what I'd love, one of my kind of second favorites, I have two which are neck and neck here, and one which is how your life affects your handwriting and the reason why people change, and the other touchy subject right now, which is Donald Trump.
Oh, you're done.
Yeah. So I know you have a fascinating story on how he's viewed, and when you present this, no matter which side of the fence the people are.
Right.
They agree. So, so what we'll do, if it's all right with you, we'll start with Donald Trump and talk a little bit about that.
Fine. When I tell people, if you don't understand somebody, imitate their handwriting and you'll understand what's going on in their brain. So Donald Trump's handwriting is all angled. And when you make angles as opposed to curves, your body tenses, it's tougher. I tell people out there, imitate it. You'll feel tension, you'll feel some anger, you'll feel competitiveness. You can't relax. It's not as nurturing. So when I tell people, well, he's a fighter, he's tough, get out of my way. In the middle of his signature is a big cross, which means don't mess with me, don't cross me, or you're in big trouble. And I have talked to both extremely liberal groups and extremely conservative groups. I say the exact words because the handwriting is the handwriting. It's not my opinion. This shows this. And I'm done with a liberal group and they'll go, you are so right. He's mean. He's tough. He fights all the time. That's all he ever does. And then I'll go, okay, And then I talk to a very conservative group there. They go, you're so right. He's tough and mean and no one's going to walk on him and he's here to help us. And thank goodness no one's going to cross him. So I don't change one word when I give a talk. I say the exact same thing, whether it's liberal or conservative, word for word almost, because it is what it is. I explain it, I show them how you see what you see. And both groups, people come up to me and just go, "You're so right. You are so right." And they have their reasons why they believe I'm right.
Yeah.
But it's opposite reasons. But nobody disagrees with what it says.
I love that, and it just goes to show how people's perception really does craft and create the world that they live in. You know, but at the same time, I love the fact that, you know, like you say, the art is in saying what you see, and, you know, no matter what people's perception is, you know, it's right. You know, there's no
Right.
arguing with it. So,
And
yeah.
right. If somebody is like tough and like gonna punch someone in the face, if they're on your side, they're next to you and someone comes to punch you, that's good. If on the other hand, you're walking around, someone's punching people in the face, and you're like, "Oh my God, stop it!" You know, so the person's going to do the same thing. It's just how that makes you feel.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely love that, and there are examples of this in your book. What I love about your book is unlike most kind of books where it's just reading and everybody else is kind of like, look at me, I'm the expert, and I'm bragging about what I can do. Your book is actually really informative in a way where I remember when I'd finished reading it, I felt like an expert. I was like, pass me letters, give me things that people have sent there where they've written in them, because I wanted to analyze. But you've got all these like little tests you can do and comparisons, and it's really, really well thought out with all the different examples, and these are all people that people will know, like celebrities or people infamous and famous, that, you know, that they are that they'll know of. That's the main thing.
What's interesting is you may not know everything. You know, there's so much to learn. However, what's interesting is you can basically learn certain things mean the same thing, and I don't care what language you're from. Like easy, like if someone writes really large, it means the same. You know, they're outgoing. They kind of want to be noticed. Someone writes really teeny. They're like shy or more in their own head. It doesn't matter. So you can learn the basics, and it's really wonderful. I mean, in some ways, I like it more than something like body language, because body language is how someone is at that very second. But handwriting is how they are inside and how that's going to play out in their life.
Yeah, and of course we've even had examples where you've spoken in the past about how one can affect the other. So the mood that you're in, as you've said, can affect you know, how you write, and at the same time you can also utilize it as a means, I suppose, of self-improvement by kind of changing the way you write in order to change the way you think and ultimately change your life.
I've actually changed my handwriting.
Really?
There were things in my handwriting, I saw them, I didn't want to see them, but they were there. And I said, I'll give you an example. Well, I don't usually talk too much about this, but years ago when I was first learning, I had something called tick marks. No, my phone. And it's another phone. We'll just leave it ring. Well, anyhow, I had something. Sorry. Anyhow, I had something called tick marks in my handwriting. Tick marks look like check marks.
Okay.
And just like Donald Trump, when you make angles, it means you have some anger in you. So I remember my instructor, now this long time ago, she said to me, "Michelle, why are you so angry?" And I'm like, "Me? I'm sweet, I'm gentle, I have no anger. What are you talking about?" And afterwards, I would never admit I was angry. I always, everything I could handle, everything. And afterwards, I went into the bathroom and I looked in the mirror and I said, "I am angry. I'm angry that this happened to me. And why did this have to happen?" And, you know, things that I held inside, I just screamed into the mirror, and I don't swear, but I swore, like, "You blah, blah, why did blah, 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 this have to happen?" And I didn't do whatever. And I swore and swore and swore and screamed, and I got everything out. And I left that bathroom, and little by little, those tick marks left my handwriting.
Oh, wow.
And I was much calmer. And I didn't even want to ever admit that anything made me angry or that I couldn't handle everything. And when she saw it and brought it up into my hand, it was one of the reasons I fell in love with analyzing handwriting. because it gave me self-awareness that I didn't want to admit. I mean, there's other things that changed when I changed, but there's other things in your handwriting that I've taken control, and I've actually tried to change it in my handwriting and tried to change it in my life. I can give you an example if you want.
Yeah, it'd be wonderful. Yeah, please do.
Okay, so I also used to be, which can work out well if you're an attorney, but not in your social life. I was a very good debater. So I had something in my handwriting called a pugilistic stroke. It's when your P has a real pointed top. And again, I said, oh, I have this pugilistic P, meaning you like to fight. And I realized in my social life, it wasn't helping me. And might help if I go to court. When I'm a handwriting expert, I do go to court. I have to, stay my ground. But in social environments, it wasn't helping my social life at all. So I decided, okay, Michelle, we're going to try to change your P to a rounded P. And at the same time, because just changing your handwriting without knowing why you're changing it, I decided when I talk to people, instead of that they said the sky is blue, I wasn't going to say it's purple. I'd say, oh, so why do you see it blue? Tell me. And I didn't respond with an opposite response to get a good debate. And I worked on it. And now I never have that pointed top, or hardly ever. And I'm trying to, and it really did help my social skills. So you can change everything from your goals to your self-esteem by changing your handwriting.
Oh wow! Okay, that's a quick tip for the people. And if you want to improve, say, your self-esteem or your self-confidence, what would be would it be to just make your writing a bit bigger, or what would be the kind of the main thing to do?
There are two main things you can do. The first thing is your letter I, meaning me, myself, and I. Is your I really teeny? Or is it large? If it's really teeny, it means you're putting yourself down. Make your letter I, whether it's cursive or printed, a little bit bigger and say, I feel proud of myself. The other thing that's a very, very easy thing to do, your letter I, again, is for you personally. But what's your signature for? Your signature is for you, for other people. And if you want to see yourself more confident in life, write your signature just a little bigger and put one little line underneath it. In other words, I deserve to stand on a little bit of a pedestal. Not a lot of lines, one line, and it will make you feel more confident.
I love that. Absolutely love that. Now, if memory serves correctly, I remember when we were talking about signatures before and the importance of signature, but also the fact that when you get somebody that writes their signature, then strikes through it, that didn't have a meaning.
When you strike through your signature, like here's your signature, strike through, what are you doing? You're crossing yourself out. So if you find that your signature, you curve back and you just have this big, that looks like an X through your name, what are you doing? Like, if don't do this, don't do that, you're slashing yourself off. So don't go backwards. Make sure there's no X's unless your name's Xavier in your name, and write it clear. And here I am, world see me.
Okay, I like that. And is there, because I had a debate not so long back with somebody when in fact, it started with my daughter. She wanted to try and get a signature. Now she's got a wonderful name, Laura Stone. Yeah, it sounds like a movie star already, doesn't it? So,
yes.
And I said, well, you're going to have to do like an L Stone. And then the mom said, no, she needs to write Laura Stone. And I said, well, and we had this whole debate whether a signature should be a letter and a surname or the full name. And I actually, for some reason, I always just thought it was a letter than the surname. But is there an unwritten law somewhere? Or is there something I don't know? Did I get it wrong? Did somebody else?
Oh, there's probably a lot you don't know. No, I'm joking.
Certainly is.
Okay, so you shouldn't tell somebody, do it this way. That is a person's brain making a choice. So it's not your choice, it's her choice. Now, if you write and your first name, Laura, Michelle, Gavin, if you write that name large, it means I want to stand on my own. I am Michelle. Not, and if you write your last name or you scratch out your last name, it means somehow you want to push your last name away. If you write your last name big and your first name's like, woof, that means let's say my name's Michelle Dresbold. I want the Dresbold family from my ancestors. I want to show who I am from like my family background and not necessarily stand on Michelle. Like you'll notice a lot of people who go into a family business, they make their last name large. So I don't believe in initials for your signature. I think you should put both out. You also notice, let's say somebody wants to get divorced, before they tell you, I saw a girl and a woman, and she wrote her name, and her first name was fine, and her last name had a great big X all over it. And so I said, so tell me, do you need a good divorce lawyer? And my brother's a divorce lawyer. And she said, well, yeah, how'd you know? I go, you crossed out your last name, So she crossed out what her husband meant to her. So look at your names. That tells a lot. It even tells how happy you are if you're with somebody, if you took their name.
I like it. So what I'm going to do a little experiment, if you don't mind, as a little gift for my daughter. Can you arrange that quickly? Cheers. So my daughter is a massive Michael Jackson fan.
Okay.
She absolutely adores she's an absolute anorak when it comes to kind of knowing all the dates of his tours and when his CDs were released and whatever else. And she asked me to look at Michael Jackson's signature, and she said, "What can you tell me?" And I spotted things, and I said, "Look, do you know what? I'm okay from little bits I've read from the book, but the expert is Michelle Dresbold." I said, "So if I ever get the chance," I said, I'll ask her to have a look." So I've just sent my wife off to go and get it from my daughter's bedroom. I'm going to try and do it on camera if we can. And if you can't see it, then it's one of those things. We'll
okay, if I can see it, I do know one thing about Michael Jackson. I'll tell you right now. I actually loved Michael. I mean, I loved his music. I'm a dancer. I love the way he dances. He did have a little self-esteem issue. And I talked about the letter I, and that's the one letter you can tell. I can write a whole book on the letter I. His letter I, which means how he felt about himself. Sometimes he made it big. Sometimes he made it real teeny. Sometimes he made it printed. Sometimes he made it cursive. Sometimes he made it capital. Sometimes he made it a small little I. And what that means in Michael Jackson's handwriting, that his self-image kept changing. So if somebody is consistent in the way they write their I, me, myself, and I, not like the letter I, but in the personal pronoun I, the way you make your I just shows a tremendous amount about you. If you see somebody and their I keeps changing, that means their self-image keeps changing. Sometimes they feel happy and good, and I'm a big shot. Oh no, I'm little and I'm a nothing. They go up and down and up and down. And if it starts to get printed and then cursive and capital and small, they really aren't sure who they really are inside. So that I can tell your daughter right away about Michael Jackson, because I have seen his handwriting. I don't remember his signature though.
Oh, well, let's. Have you got it? Did you manage to get it? No, she had a picture or something with it on, didn't she? Yes, please. Sorry, my fault.
Okay. We'll get it. We'll get it. And if we don't get it this time, we'll get it next time, and you'll send it to me, and I'll just do a real quick thing on Michael Jackson.
Oh, that'd be great, because she absolutely loves it. So right, we've covered Donald Trump. Now, something that I wanted to ask. There's this debate amongst so many people about scruffy handwriting and all the myths and all the kind of, some people say, oh no, if you've got scruffy handwriting, it's because you're a scruffy and untidy and unkept person and disorganized. Other people say no, it's because you're really intelligent and your brain moves faster than your hand can keep up. And so, what is the truth, or does it vary depending on the person?
Well, not on the person, but on the handwriting. Example, you may look at someone's handwriting. If it looks ugly, I mean, there's a look of let's take Charles Manson. It was all dug
Mm,
in and had weird signs, and there were big letters and little letters, and it looked ugly to the eye. That's
mm,
different than messy or fast handwriting.
mm,
Somebody like Beethoven, many geniuses have handwriting that's fast, and it's not your typical slow, perfect, neat handwriting because their brains are thinking very fast. There's a beauty in their handwriting. I look at handwriting, sometimes I turn it upside down. So I'm not reading it. I look at it like a painting, a picture. And many people who write real slow and perfect, they've got a problem that they can't be spontaneous. They're frightened. They're scared. And so just beauty doesn't mean good, and ugly
mm,
and messy doesn't mean bad. Messy can mean a very smart, fast brain that doesn't want to waste time. And
mm.
very slow handwriting can mean somebody who's just very afraid and wants to, so worried that everything has to be perfect that they can't move on.
Mm,
So just because someone's messy doesn't mean, or looks messy, let's say looks messy, they can be a genius. But if
yeah.
it looks ugly, then they have a problem.
Ah,
There's a difference.
yeah, I like that. I like the way, yeah, because it's looking at the art of it, I suppose, more so than the text. So, okay, so I have Michael Jackson's
Oh,
signature.
okay.
I've managed to get it. It's actually from a little bit later on in his career, so we'll get that to
Okay.
that in a moment. We've still got a
Get
couple
it.
of tips coming up, and the and the warning signs to look for to keep everybody's mouth watering. So I'm going to try and bring this in front of the camera and hold it still
Oh,
for
that's
you.
Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
Okay. Example, notice he actually does kind of cross out his name. There is an X there. So he does have self-destructive handwriting.
Mhm.
The little heart is, there is a romantic notion. When you have lower loops, that means anything like that would be the Y loop, the G loop, or if it's a regular letter and it goes down, this is a J loop, I think from his last name, it's enormous.
Yeah.
Think of the bottom loops as anything from your belly button down. It can mean movement. It can mean desire for money. It can also mean sexual proclivities.
Mhm.
So when you look at that last name, you have this enormous J,
Mhm.
and especially the bottom part. The bottom part. So he did move. I mean, he wasn't. All athletes will have big lower loops because they emphasize the physical. Also, when you have somebody, he also has an X. You see that X in the lower loop? It's by
Yeah.
that thing that goes over and it forms an X.
Mhm.
So there's something in his sexual or physical area that he kind of is a little bit of a no-no, and that's why that X forms. You have big capital letters. You have big capital letters in almost every famous person. They do like recognition.
Mhm.
Your middle letters, that's your O, your E, your I, are very teeny. That's your everyday being. He didn't really care about everyday. Someone else will take care of that. At the end of his L, there's like it cups Jackson. I guess that's an N at the end. Michael, whatever, it looks like an L at the end, way at the last letter. That's the first letter.
This
That's
one?
the
Oh,
last
yeah,
letter.
there we go.
Jackson. I don't know what that letter is, but it
Yeah.
cups, has a cup. When you have a cup, think of it as a hand that's going out to try to be helpful, to be generous,
Oh.
to be so you may have someone who has self-destructive tendency, wants to be famous, has a romantic notion of life, um, physically is very physical, but there's something making an X, meaning whether it's physical, he's having problems, it's right there, physical or sexually, there's a problem there. Because if not, that X would not appear there. But if he did care about you, he'd be very generous in
Mhm.
giving to you.
Oh, wow. See, that big loop that you mentioned here, that I got this all wrong because obviously you said it's from the lower half. I don't know why, but for some reason, the minute I saw his signature from a distance, I just saw a great big teardrop,
Oh,
and it made me really sad for him. So, but you know that obviously makes a lot more sense now that you've broken that down. I don't feel
Well,
quite so bad.
it could, you know what? It's sometimes things, there's your technical reasons, and then there's the things that you just pick up.
Hmm.
You picked up a teardrop, and that's not wrong. It's what is in there too. There are symbols. I mean, as I said, handwriting doesn't come from our hand, it comes from our brain. If you break your right hand and write with your left hand, it may look sloppy, but it will have the same features in it. And so you also see a figure eight, sort of.
Yeah.
And figure eights are people who are very well spoken, have it's a good movement,
Hmm.
and probably it's also someone who's usually good at math. And so to figure out all those dance steps,
Hmm.
he had to be probably a mathematical. You have to think, you have to plan it out, you have to mathematically think. So he also probably was actually really good at math. That X's, and there's two of them in there.
Hmm.
It does mean self-destructive habits and tendencies.
Well, that would probably kind of line up with the painkiller addiction that he was
Hmm.
suffering towards the end of his career. Uh,
Right.
and excuse me, that what you said about the figure eight obviously would make sense. But as you know, being a dancer, 5, 6, 7, 8, everything's done in fours and
Right.
eights. So
Right.
yeah, that would probably be probably the most significant number in his life. Then, really, wouldn't it be the number
Yeah.
eight? So yeah, that would
Your
make it.
number eight. One, two,
Yeah.
three, four, five, six, seven, eight. Change.
So there we go for everybody watching. Little lesson there on not only handwriting but Michael Jackson as well. So,
Right. And
um,
dance.
so yeah, and dance as well. Yeah, true. So on behalf of my daughter Michelle, thank you for that.
Oh, you're
That's absolutely
welcome.
wonderful. That
Yeah,
was
I've always I wish I had seen Michael Jackson when he was alive. I think his performance would have been absolutely brilliant and fascinating.
oh for sure. When after I taught him how to dance and do the moonwalk, we kind of lost contact after that. So
Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna learn the moonwalk. Someone told me they're gonna teach me some. I'm
yeah.
ready for
I
it.
couldn't do the moonwalk if I was placed on the moon. You know,
Well, maybe if we go to Mars.
yeah, why not? I'll give it a try. So yeah, so with that we're going to go to the one that we've been teasing them with a little bit now, and this is like the kind of warning signs to look for in people's handwriting. So for all the women out there who are getting Valentine's or just had Valentine's cards or
Or
gifts,
anything.
yeah, anything like this, love letters straight from the heart. What are the main things that they should be looking for that should make them go, oh, I need to stay away from this person?
Okay. I'll give you one easy good one. An
Mhm.
easy good one is if you have the person write on lined paper. On lined paper in a notebook, there's usually a vertical line and then there's lines.
Mhm.
If that person disregards that vertical line or writes right through it, they don't follow rules. In fact, they're breaking the rules of society. And
Bit like that.
yeah, a bit like that, but you don't have that line. We need a vertical line. We need
Ah,
that.
yeah, that's the
It's not if you don't follow the lines on the page. It's that there's a vertical line, and if you write right through it and say, "I don't care about that vertical," most people will write, not go through that line.
like
Almost
the
everybody.
margin
Yeah,
line.
the margin line.
Got
If
you.
you write through that margin line, unless you just are working on a teeny piece of paper and that's all you have and you got to get a lot in. But if someone has a lot of paper, I hand that to a guy that thinks he might want to date me. Here's right for me. I give you a very quick story. Years ago, I went out with somebody's brother who fixed me up, and it was fun and he was real nice, but there was something about him that made me uncomfortable, and I really couldn't wait to get home. And he was like, "Oh, can I walk you to the door? Can I do this?" I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Well, and he was very insistent, and I just kept saying no. There was just something in me that knew I didn't want him to come near my front door. And later, I asked his sister, "Is there something wrong with your brother? I mean, do you have handwriting?" And he wrote right through that line. She goes, "Well, he sort of was always in trouble, and he's good now, but he was in prison." I'm like, "What kind of person are you fixing me up with?" Oh my God! I mean, that was a long time ago, but I knew instinctually, and I believe people should go. But all in his handwriting, it showed that, don't trust me. So that's one. Another one that could be it's not super dangerous, but I would avoid it. Some people, they end their letter with a clause, like a Y, and then it claws over. And what that means, it sort of looks like a U at the end of a Y instead of a loop. What that means is they feel guilty and they feel that they've done stuff wrong. And sooner or later, they don't trust you and they'll put you in a position to make you do something wrong. And then they'll go, I told you so. So those are not good people. Let's see another one, a red flag. Oh, okay. Your O's and your A's are your communication letters. So if somebody's O's and A's are full of junk, like slashes, black book, it means that you can't trust what they're communicating to you. They're liars. And I'll give you the easiest one, but the best one. Let's say you're hiring an accountant or someone to keep your books or anything, and you ask them to write out their numbers. And they write out numbers, and you can read most of them, but maybe one of their letters, their 9s could sort of look like 7s, and their 0s, maybe has that an 8. You can't really read their numbers. You can read a few of their numbers. But then they make ambivalent. It's called ambivalent numbers. It happens with writing too, but it's easier with numbers. I studied with the Secret Service, and I always heard, oh, don't trust somebody whose numbers you can't read. And I thought, well, that seems so easy. Well, I've had case after case dealing with embezzlers, and I guarantee you they all make their numbers that way. There's very few things that are guaranteed, but that doesn't mean someone's writing out a number and all of a sudden their hand gets hit and that they goof up. But look at their numbers. Somebody once gave me a phone number. I'll call this person. I was like, why can't I read this numbers? And it did turn out that person was a con artist and but it shows up over and over and over again. And there are definite signs of other things that if you're dealing with a con artist, which will show up. And everyone I've ever dealt with is handwriting who is a con artist.
Are there any kind of, like a couple that really stand out that con artists?
Yes. It's a little like the numbers. What a con artist is and what a con artist does is they give you some things you can believe in, and then they make some things ambivalent. A con artist works on the premises that I will give you some truth, maybe a little bit of truth, and then I'm going to sneak something in, and you will see what I'm asking you to see. Almost everybody who's ever been conned will go, I should have seen that. I don't know why I didn't pay. In handwriting, you can read a lot of it, but if you take certain words out of context and you can't read it, you read it when it's in line and you think you're reading what that person wrote, but take a word out of context and you go, wait a second, what does this say? This is so confusing. And maybe just one word, it doesn't, but if it's, there will be a pattern, just like, because we're reading someone's brain, we're reading the pattern of their brain, and they will make things ambivalent because that's who they are. They're cons.
Got you. So if we isolate these words from the other words, so you're just looking at one particular word and it doesn't seem to make sense until you read the rest of the sentence, then you're like, oh, I can make out what it is now. That's the kind of thing we're talking about.
And when you read it in context, you think you're saying it. You actually don't go, wait, what's that word? You read it because it makes sense in the word. But if you take it away from that sentence, you can't read that word at all. That's your con artist. And that's one of the other guarantees. There's a few guarantees. Those are a few. Now there's other things too, like devil's fork, and those are really bad people.
I like those ones. I remember us talking about them before. They were. It was actually quite funny because there was like masses of them, like that just looked like pitchforks sticking out of people's writing. It was brilliant.
It looks like pitchforks sticking out of writing. I'll give you a story. People will send me handwriting and have, whatever they want me to evaluate it, whatever they do. A woman sent me handwriting, and this was a guy she was dating. And there was a pitchfork in his handwriting. And I was like, I called her up. I said, oh my gosh, you cannot date this man. He's dangerous. You've got to break up. I hope you're safe, all the things. And she's like, oh, okay. Anyhow, she called me back. She told me she was a psychologist. She was actually going to a psychiatrist. And the psychiatrist, she didn't tell me this. The psychiatrist said to her, if you keep dating this man, I will not treat you because he will eventually kill you.
Oh,
And she
wow.
didn't tell me that, of course. I just saw it in the handwriting. She goes, but I didn't want to break up from him until you confirmed it. And I said, okay. And she goes, we broke up. I think he's dating someone else. Thank goodness. I'm like, oh, well, the poor other person. But, it was interesting because I've had a lot of people who maybe go to a psychiatrist. They're not crazy or anything like that. They're just having problems. And they'll tell me stuff, and I'll go, well, talk to, you're going to a therapist, go talk to them. They'll go, oh no, I would never tell my therapist, I'm too embarrassed. I'm like, well, why telling me? But there was that devil's fork in this guy's handwriting, and it was like, move away. And that was that. I told her, maybe get a Doberman pinch or whatever it takes. Get away from this guy.
Oh, definitely. Wow. Yeah, I've gone way off where I was at with questions now, because that was just so interesting. And you threw me when you were saying about, like, kind of, oh, I could never tell my therapist that, and it's like, it just like defeats the object of having a therapist.
Right.
Oh, well. So yeah, we've been through some of the warning signs, and yeah, so is there anything that we can look for that kind of shows that somebody's like really caring and honest, and what are the kind of things that we'd want to look for with that?
Ideally, you want to look at consistency, that their handwriting looks consistent. That's a consistent person. You want someone who dots their I's. Like if someone dots their I's sort of right around the stem, they're loyal. If you're looking for loyal home cooked meals, write an I, and they dot their I right above it. Those are the ones who come home, cook you meals. They're not like running around. It depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for somebody who's very emotional, then pick someone with a rightward slant and not a back leftward slant. If you need to find somebody who is organized and has their act together, more straight up and down or slightly to the right, but a very, very consistent handwriting. You're looking for a genius, find handwriting you can't read.
Yeah. So, is there anything specific that is like, kind of, say, that denotes high intelligence? Like, I know we talked earlier about fast handwriting being one kind of factor, but are there any other signs or anything that like you can look at and say, oh, I can tell this is a very intelligent person, or something we can do to make ourselves become more intelligent?
Okay, I'll give your listeners, or like my name, Michelle. Just try. I'll ask you. Just write Michelle, Michelle, and when you write it, do you go mi.chelle, or do you go michle and go back and dot the I?
Right. No, it doesn't apply to me because I write in block capitals. So
Okay.
I'm a nightmare.
Okay. So try to just do cursive.
Okay,
Just
let's try. I dotted the I. Yeah, I did. I dotted the I, and still went back to default of writing in block capitals
Did
afterwards.
you dot the I right away?
Yeah, dot the I and then moved on.
Okay, that's what you did. If somebody goes mi dot, there'll be a little gap in the writing right there, and they'll chelle. That means your brain thinks ahead. As you said, like if you write the whole name and then have to go back, you're taking more steps to get where you're going. So some form, like Albert Einstein, he would, especially if it's at the beginning of the word, dots the I right away or crosses the T right away. If it's at the end of the word, it doesn't matter because your hand's not going back that much. So that is one way you can tell if someone's super intelligent. And in fact, if you're out there, sometimes people, very linear thinkers, will go MICHELLE dot. Maybe engineers, whatever. But as a whole, if you want to think faster, do faster, try dotting your I's and crossing your T's right away, and do other things in your life to eliminate a step. Maybe make your bed, and instead of it being 4 minutes, how can you do it in 3 minutes? So that's an efficiency thing.
Sure, yeah. I suppose it would make sense because if you're doing the M and then the I, you're only depending if you're going up and down or where you're starting from with the I. But you're only if you're starting from the bottom and going up, it's only moving it just a tiniest amount to dot it before you carry on. So
Right.
yeah, that would make a lot more sense. I
Maybe you
suppose.
should ask the question, why do you write in all capitals?
Oh yeah, I'm under the impression that, and I think we spoke about it before, and you said it was. I think it was something to do with the fact that I didn't want people reading me or being able
Right.
to know too much about me. Is that have I got it right?
Yes. I mean, there's two reasons, especially men write in all capitals more than women. But it's much harder to read somebody who writes in all capitals. If you print, it's harder than cursive. So someone who writes in all capitals, if you write an anonymous letter, it's almost all in all capitals usually. It's because they don't want you to read them. I'm keeping myself. Now, it can also mean I'm an architect or I'm a drafts person and my job is my life. So it can mean that. But when you find people who write in all capitals, usually they're friendly. They can be friendly. They can be really nice. But they keep a little distant of letting you really know them and really into their life.
Okay, so that's something
We
for
got
everybody.
you.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you're shining the light on my Heidi spot.
I know.
So I know you mentioned, because we've got about like 15 minutes left. So I know you mentioned the letter I and how important that is. And I know that when we discussed before about the loops when you're writing cursive in an I are really, really important. So we could perhaps go into that in a moment. But I remember you telling me something when we were comparing somebody's handwriting before. When I wrote the letter I, it was like one single stick, and you said that is like kind of, it was a big, nice, independent kind of thing, and that was the word. It was independent, kind of self-standing, as opposed to somebody who writes it like a sideways H. So when you turn a capital H sideways, and you've got those
yeah,
stanchions.
I understand.
Yeah,
up to a bar and a bar, horizontal.
that's it. Yeah.
Bar.
So would that mean that somebody who writes that kind of barred letter I, would that mean that they're somebody who needs more support in their life, or what would that signify?
Not necessarily. When you write your I, the top part, and we're talking about a printed I, you can have just a straight line. You can usually you have a top and a bottom. The bottom usually represents your relationship with your father, and the top usually represents your relationship with your mother. So depending on how that's written, it can tell an awful lot about your background. Cursive I, same idea. You can often tell a huge amount about somebody's background and childhood. Someone who chooses, and again, handwriting, what is handwriting? We learn something and then we choose. You choose to write in all capitals. I choose to write a different way completely. We learn something, and luckily we learn different things, and we can change from there. But that phone, it's not even my other phone. Oh my gosh. But anyhow, that's how many telemarketers I get. But anyhow, so if you just have a straight line, that means I'm independent. I'm not depending on the background from my father or my mother. I'm standing on my own. If you had if your bottom of an I is kind of not touching, it might mean that the father figure wasn't there that much. So you look at all these things, and there's not always just one reason. There can be many. That's where learning a lot, the basics, but there's so many different steps. But often, does the I cross through the line, or the horizontal bar, is it way lower? The other day, and without going into specifics, I was helping somebody with their handwriting and in their background. I mean, they wanted to know about themselves. And I said to this person, I said, well, you had an early childhood trauma and it dealt with your father. And he said, well, I did have sort of something. I said, oh, okay, you know, because it's really strong in your handwriting that it's affected you. And he said, well, I said, so what happened with your father when you were really young? He said, when I was really young, my father committed suicide. I said, oh. And he said, but I don't think it affected me. I said, it affected you, and it's in your handwriting. And, you know, so a lot of your other issues stem back from something you won't even see or look at. And then he opened up. So often I'll work with psychologists or psychiatrists when a person, many times we don't open up or even know what's causing us some issues in our life. But there it was in his handwriting that some trauma at a young age dealt with his father. And, you know, there it was. So that was also from his letter I, all from his letter I. And one other letter and something else in his handwriting. You know, I forgot some. You know, there are ways to see where somebody had trauma and about what age they had it too. But that's a little complicated. But
So-
I can almost always tell, like, where did someone have trauma and what age they were, and that will open somebody up. If you have to be very careful when I tell people things, because they have to be ready to hear it. Like, I think when someone goes to therapist, I say, that might take you like 2 years, but I can tell you in 20 minutes. You know?
Oh, well, I got a little sample here. I don't know if you can see that very well. That is someone's eye. It looks like an upright fish, but that is someone's capital I.
Is that your daughter?
No, that's actually my wife's capital I. So feel free to insult away.
Oh, I don't want to insult. Actually, with that, there's really no base on that eye. So growing up, the base was a little not there for her. She had some support, but a base, there was not something she felt solid standing on.
That is about as accurate as you can get.
Right, I'd have to talk to her in private.
Yeah, I'm gonna say I'll leave it at that, because there are. I'll tell you when we finish recording that. But yes, you're spot on. I don't want to say this publicly because
I know. That's why some of the people ask me these things. I'm like, okay, are you ready to hear it? You know, so
yeah, that's what we got to watch. So with the letter, I'm going back to that one where, because I saw one the other day which I thought was really interesting, because obviously you were talking about the base being the father, and then that was
you're the vertical.
Yeah. And then what happened was that the father was perfectly straight, horizontal, and then the vertical was perfectly straight, but the top was slanted, with the left side down and the right side up. So what
I'd have to see it, but that top is the mother. Like, mother. So I'd have to talk to that person about what went on with their mother. And there's sometimes you have to see something else in the handwriting, and it will all kind of
click into place.
Can I tell you one other kind of
weird? Please do.
Again, this was at, I get hired at a lot of events, and I give a lot of talks. And then afterwards, people sometimes will come up and go, oh, look at my handwriting. And I'm like, I'm always happy to look at their handwriting. And one young woman, maybe she was 20s, 30s, I don't know. She came up and she wrote for me. And her handwriting showed a trauma, and you can tell about the age. That's not from the letter I, that's from something else. And it was about, I said, between 9 and 12, or 9 and 11. And I said, and it dealt, I said, your mother and father did not get along. You had a trauma around 9, 10, 11 years old, and you really have issues with your father. I said, I don't usually say what happened, because if they want to tell me, they tell me. If they don't want to tell me this, I don't want to interfere with anybody's life. She goes, when I was 10 years old, my father shot my mother. And I'm like, wow. And she said, would you like to keep my handwriting? Because if this could help somebody else, I'd like you to study it. And I said, sure. And I did keep it. And, but there it was just like, you never know when you open something up, what somebody's going to tell you.
Yeah, that in itself is quite.
It's like,
wow.
You just never know.
You know what?
Can I give you one more good story?
Oh,
Do we have
yes,
one more?
yes. I love these.
Okay, this is just a different story. But since we're talking about the I and self-esteem and all that, I gave a big talk, and this is to a bunch of law enforcement agents. This is also a while ago. And afterwards, the talk was on Ted Bundy and how, if you had his handwriting, how you would have known that what his personality was, where he might live, all his issues, how you would have profiled him just from a little bit of handwriting. And after the class, one woman in the class came up to me and she said, I met Ted Bundy. And I said, oh, you did? And she said, yes, when I was in college. I said, you met? She said, yes, he came. I was eating lunch and he sat down at the table and he asked me for a date. And she said, I said, oh, and she goes, but I didn't go out with him. I said, thank goodness. What was it about him that made you not go? Did he give you like the creeps? What did you do? How did you know? She goes, no, she said, at that time, I really didn't feel very pretty and I had very low self-esteem. And I thought, why would this handsome guy want to go out with me? And she turned him down. I looked at her handwriting. She still had a teeny weeny eye, meaning low. And I said to her, well, for once in your life, low self-esteem saved you.
Oh, wow. Yeah, everything happens for a reason. Sometimes we
Yeah.
don't always know, do
You
we?
don't know
So,
why. And
wow.
thank goodness she didn't go, well, of course this good looking guy would want me. You know, she's like, oh, why would he want me? And she said no.
Wow. That is that. It's kind of it's a sad but wonderful story all in one, isn't it? And I'm hoping for the right reasons later on her self-esteem improves.
Yes, I hope for the
Um,
right reasons.
but
That
hopefully that
is
was the perfect timing in her life to save it.
perfect time to have low self-esteem.
Wow, right. I'm definitely one day, Michelle, you and I are going to have to get together, and I'd love you to give me a masterclass. And
Oh, I would do that. Maybe we could do a master class together. You can do body language, whatever you want to do, and I'll do the handwriting. So if people
yeah,
are interested, we'll do it.
that would be wonderful. I'd absolutely love that. So yeah, for everybody who's watching, we're going to wrap it up now. I'm going to show everybody this one more time. Sex, Lies, and Handwriting. This is the book to get, and there is a new fiction novel on the way as well. So keep your eye out for that. And Michelle, yet again, thank you. I love having you on here, and
Well,
it's
thank you.
always a
You're
pleasure.
such a pleasure. You're so much
Oh.
fun to talk to.
Oh, thank you. Well, I've enjoyed every minute. I'm going to end the recording there. You okay to stay on for a moment afterwards?
Yeah, sure, sure.
Fantastic. Thank you,
Put my
everybody.
glasses
And like and subscribe to the channel if you like this kind of stuff.